Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Fight Chat Friday from TKD Coach Academy. This is episode 146, and we've stayed a little bit again with the European Championships in Romania. We're going back to the well on that one and picking out another really nice fight. The final of the plus 85 kilo section on the boys' side. That is Jakub Gadzala and Arthur Kuzmin. So Poland versus Ukraine. And a very interesting, even in the biggest boys division, it's still a little bit of a little versus large kind of a match. And I think that's always really interesting to review and to look at, particularly as in this particular instance, Arthur does take the win as the smaller boy in the division.
Mhm.
So I think a really interesting match. Tactics are really quite good to look at. So perhaps we'll just jump straight into that, Richie, and talk our way through
Yeah,
it.
definitely. We always talk about the theory behind how to do this, but Arthur shows us in practice. So, starting off the match, Jacob is in blue and Arthur in red, but he actually does really well to use his own front leg, not to leave Jacob take control of the distance at the beginning, which is
Yeah.
actually very important. So he doesn't give up his psychic on the hip at the beginning. Now here, the in and out from Jacob is actually really good because it keeps him in control of the distance a little bit better and squeezes Arthur towards the edge. So now he's in control a little bit more of the three things we always speak about: the distance, the ring position, and the tempo and the rhythm. So this is actually a great little sequence here from Gadzala as the bigger guy. So this is what you want to see. And then he eventually pushes out and goes forward. You get the defensive psychic in there. So good positioning from Arthur. But it was actually good use of being the bigger guy for me, being able in and out and just controlling those things from Jakob.
Yeah, I think he just gets caught a little sideways and his front foot traps his back foot as he goes to the blitz. I think this particular action is quite interesting. And I remember Luke Woods from Ireland years and years ago used to quite like the back kick as an attacking entry shot simply because there's so little target area available and your opponent has to react very quickly to where the appropriate target is going to be at the end of the kick. So, you know,
Mm.
adding
Yeah,
that back
it
kick
is a
in
good
as a
one.
covering shot to get you into contact sometimes, can be quite good, particularly if it's a shot you pull out of the blue. Not
Yeah,
something you do all the time.
if it's a straight line, whereas if you circle the back kick like a reverse side kick, let's say, it doesn't work as much
Yeah,
because you can come through with hands. Here's a nice little variation from Arthur to be able to bypass that extra distance. So the distance is a big factor here when there's a big, taller fighter versus one who is not so tall. Arthur's still a big boy, of course, but there's a big difference there. But again, we see this back kick coming off. So again, now I feel here Arthur's just kind of getting control of the distance, but here is his first big launch and he finds a good entry, gets the blitz, and gains a lot of momentum, which is hard to do. And I really impressed by not just Arthur, but all of Team Solivay's high turning kicks after they gaining
yeah.
momentum on a blitz. They do it really well, and we'll see one at the end here as well, which is really
Looking for
impressive
that
from
extra
Arthur.
added value at the end of the hard work. Because if you think about it in terms of like, there's been quite amount of time, spent in this match already getting to the point where that is set up. And if it
Mm-hmm.
if it gets missed then and there's no added value at the end, it's an awful shame. Steps through the front leg very well there to hands as well, does Arthur. And it he's started to pick up on a slight step, I think, from Jacob
Mm-hmm.
before the lift of the front leg and reads that timing to bring the backhand into play.
Yeah, as well as the fact that he's also realized now that he's actually been quite effective when he gets the hands because he's entering quite quick and he has good footwork and rhythm. So just playing at the end of that leg actually allows him to be in a good position. But now at the start of this round again, I think Jakob uses the front leg well to keep him back and just increase that distance. You see, even Arthur tries to go with the hands, it's a little bit tougher there on that one
Yeah.
just because the distance is increased. But now he's getting a bit closer again by using his own front leg as the smaller guy to get into that distance. Okay, so he's playing inside and outside, which is very important. So he's not at the end of the leg too much until he is, which is here. So this is
Yeah.
just the only point really where he's in the wrong position at the end of the leg, and he's able to come over the top and get a nice head kick there. And Arthur realizes it's very quick and just swarms through to get through the hands. It's natural reaction if you get head kicked. Usually your opponent is going to launch at you straight away. So he comes right through to the other side and scores a lovely hacks of his own to cancel that out. So that kind of brings us back to level pegging then again once he gets that. So a nice use of the front leg. I like the way he kind of uses it just to kind of hoist it up there to test and then comes over the top. So once he gets through here, you'll see it again in the next sequence. But yeah, good switch up here. Jakub does what he needs to do, putting his opponent at the end of his leg, exactly where he wants to be. And then on the flip side, Arthur does a good job of being able to bypass that leg again by using his footwork to get in and then coming over the top when he closes that distance into the shorter range.
Yeah, I just particularly like in this one, there's a moment there where Arthur looks at the scoreboard, realizes that he's conceded that 3-pointer. But rather than dwelling on it, he kind of just says, right, that's in the past. What's important now? Steps himself right up next to Jakub and then puts on that pressure and goes for that hacks to the head. So I just like psychologically, the reaction to the blow of being in a close match where he had a slight lead to now, oh my God, I've been hit with a 3-pointer. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And even though I don't think he gets the return on that headshot in the corner, it's the positivity. It's the I'm going to step in here. I'm going to create my own pressure and let's see what comes next. And this one, like, it looks like a nothing. We have that turning kick, but it lands so sweet in the ribs. Jakub needs to take a little bit of a knee after that. But again, we're just talking about that value add. The ability to put the turning kick on the end of the hands creates a score differential. Really, really important.
And a lot of people aren't able to get that distance correct after getting to hands. So whether you get momentum and push them back, it's a bit easier. But when you really are close, it's a bit more difficult. So when we see that last clip there as well, you notice that, like, when he does go through, he's finding out now that, okay, the hands are my entry and that's where I'm getting my value. So that's important as the smaller guy and also as the bigger guy. You need to find quickly where you're going to get your return and where your advantage will be. And that's what he did early on in this fight. And he kept returning to the well. And you can see he fancies the hands then because he feels that that's where his advantage is over this opponent. But the important part is how to bypass that distance, because obviously that's in Jakub's favor when he's at the end of his leg where he's right now. But he's able to pull around on just outside the leg range and then picks his moment to just bypass that range quickly with good footwork.
Cutting the angle on that circle lets him hide the fact that he's short in the distance. So Jakub's coming around. Arthur has that front foot, just steps in, and he's not having to cover much distance with that blitz. He's hidden the closing of distance with that 90-degree turn on the circle. So I think that's quite clever.
Yeah, definitely. And he's in the driving seat here now, really. So he's well able to move, which is a good skill you need to have as a smaller guy. You need to be fast and agile and have good evasive skills. So he's able to just hold at the end of the distance. Clock is running down. He's up on the scoreboard. He doesn't want to give away any warnings because, as far as I'm aware, I think he's on 2 right now. So he doesn't want to give away that third one. So it's important he stays in the ring. Now he's hanging around the edge, playing a dangerous game, but he's using good footwork here and good angles, which are very, very important. And this is the head kick I'm talking about here. The way he's able to pull his body back from being so upright, launches in, gets a few punches, and boom, that's a great shot. How he pulls that one off there, very, very impressive. So if you can add that one to your arsenal, it's a big value score. But one big thing that's impressive from Arthur is, although he's a smaller guy, he gets very upright on his own punches, which allows him to actually trade with Jakub a little bit better on the inside. Even though Jakub didn't back up there one bit, he's able to trade with him effectively because he's more upright. And we spoke about that all the way back, I think, episode 1, 2, or 3, very early when we had a look at Zach Espy. So that one has been one that's come true ever since.
And I think, as you say, it's being upright as you punch, but it's also he's coming from lower to higher. He's driving from the ground up. So if he can get in under the chin as such and create that initial backward movement, very, very hard once your chin has been lifted, your heels hit the deck, to make good movement or to react well, you have to kind of, reset your feet and establish from there. And I think what Arthur does very, very well is once he's got that pressure, and I think his accuracy is great as well. He's not blitzing off of angles, when he and what I mean by that is, yes, he could find an angle first, but when he comes in, he's through your center line. And when you get through the center line and lift the chin, it puts the person back on the heels and he can get that forward momentum. And I think that's really good. Whereas we often see when people go to the blitz, they're so afraid of being countered or being, whether it's the side kick, the back kick, or even with the hands, that they throw their head off to the side a little bit and it carries them to the left of the person. They don't get that momentum through the center line and it makes it much more difficult to be able to put the kick on the end. So him, picking the line down the center and absolutely going for it, I think is massive. And it's not that he doesn't get caught from time to time. Like in 2 occasions earlier, Jakub makes the defensive side kick, or at least, gets the shin across the body. So it doesn't mean that it will always work, but it means that when it does work, it's got that added effect.
Yeah, you need to be brave there as well. It's not an easy thing to do, especially as the smaller guy in a heavier division. You need to be brave and go for that. But it all comes from his setups of the footwork. So if he doesn't have good rhythm and being able to break that and use test steps, he's not going to have the same confidence to get the hands and bypass that range, because
Yeah.
like that is the key in any battle, but especially in a tall versus smaller duel, where you gotta be able to bypass the distance as the smaller guy. Obviously, the taller person wants to keep you at the end of the leg and keep you really at the maximum range possible. So it's up to you to, once you realize, okay, am I going to be using my own legs and banging on the hip, not neglecting that as the smaller guy, or am I going to be trying to get the hands more? Then you're going to have to realize, how do I get through those distances? And that's the important thing, really. The biggest two takeaways that you need if you're looking for this small v tall battle on both sides. So we have the stats as well, Adrian.
Yeah, absolutely. So we might just start with the bare numbers of it, and we can look for those points of contrast, and particularly the shots that made contact. And I think that whole area, the blitz from Arthur Kuzmin opened up, I think, the other things that were able to then build the score, because so often,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the blitz gets you in, but Jacob stood his ground most of the time and was able to trade back. But I think that blitz opened up those two dolios that made contact, in particular. And I think when it comes to the match as a whole, those little follow-on shots made a big difference.
Yeah, you're right. Spot on. Like, if you look at the numbers, that tells the story for me that Arthur was looking for hands and blitz. So we have two of those on separate ones, obviously. But overall, there, we're making a nice number on those. And then the Dolios that come after as a result. Now, only made contact with two, but they were two great ones. Okay. And they were very good scores. So that was the story for him. Obviously, he realized pretty quickly that the hands were going to be his entry points, but used the carries from time to time to get to that. And whereas on the other side, as the bigger guy, it makes sense for Jakub to have more of a carry and to have way more of those. You see his highest number there, over 15 on that red line for his carries. Not as
Yeah,
successful with them, which tells us that he was using this to control distance as opposed
exactly.
to do anything else. Obviously, that's only normal for him as the taller guy to use that front leg to control the distance much more. So he was looking for legs to win this match, which he didn't really get the returns, as we see the contacts made as much compared to that dolly over the blind side, the big score that he got. Whereas Arthur was more successful on his attempts to get his scores, which was true hands.
Yeah, and I do think the warnings tells the tale in one way as well, which is that you would expect when you have a taller opponent who's carrying the front leg at you and making use of sidekick as well, that the warning count for the smaller person could be higher. And he hasn't
Mm-hmm.
taken a deduction, like Arthur hasn't taken a deduction on warnings. That's quite impressive. And also considering both guys went to hands quite a bit, that there were no fouls, and nothing that looked like a foul. I think also,
Yeah.
really quite a standout feature of this particular match.
Yeah, definitely a good one. Two young guys as well who are coming through, so they're going to be some of the guys to watch out for the Worlds coming up, I think, in Finland at the end of the year.
For sure. Okay, folks, again, like always, if you have a match that you would like us to take a look at, please hit us up on the social media, and let us know what you'd like us to look at. We may, over the next while, get a chance to look at that European Cup that we've been promising to dig into for a while. We just haven't had the time to review that one yet. And not being there, we didn't see the matches in person. So if you were there, if you saw a great match, let us know so we can chase it down, and we'd be happy to review that in coming episodes. So that's us for this Friday.
All right, see you in the next one.
Bye now.